Testing. You good? Okay. Good. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us out here today. We're going to be hearing from some speakers to talk about the tragic gun violence that continues to grip our city. First, we're going to be hearing from Mayor Kenney, Commissioner Outlaw. We have Erica Atwood, who's the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives for Public Safety and Criminal Justice. We'll be hearing from Catherine Ott-Lavelle. Congressman Dwight Evans is also joining us. Councilmember Gaudier, District Attorney Krasner, and after everyone gets a chance to speak, we're going to take some questions and answers. Okay? Mayor Kenney.
Good afternoon, and thanks for being here. It really pains me to have to gather like this once again because our city has been rocked by more senseless gun violence right here. As I always say, one shooting is one too many, but the level of violence this week was egregious. It's particularly egregious when youth are involved, when our children are the victims. I extend my deepest condolences to the families who have lost loved ones to violence. My heart breaks every day for all of them during this unimaginable time. And my thoughts are with all shooting victims who are fortunate enough to survive, and I pray for their full recovery. As I said last night, 2021 is on track to be the most violent year we've experienced in our lifetimes. Everyone here today and everyone in our communities knows that this is a very complicated issue. We do know that the unchecked flow of guns into our city gives people with ill intent the tools to cause irreparable harm. We know economic insecurity can cause people to act out in desperation. We know that strained relationships with the police can cause community members to not speak out when they see something that is wrong. And we know that there is always more we can do to target resources to communities in need to hopefully prevent future tragedies. We simply cannot stand by as we lose an entire generation to this ongoing surge of gun violence. We must rise up with one unified voice to demand this horrific violence come to an end, and we must work together to achieve this goal. Beginning next Wednesday at noon, our administration will host regular bi-weekly public briefings to share investigation updates, strategies underway to address this public health crisis, and create safe, healthy communities. We will be candid about our challenges and transparent about the solutions and resources we're bringing to bear to reduce violence across the city. I recognize that holding these briefings will not solve our gun violence issue, but we want to be fully transparent about what we're trying to do and what we can do better. And we're hopeful that the briefings will better inform the public and hold all of us as leaders of this city accountable. The briefings will include senior members of our administration who work to advance the Philadelphia Roadmap for Safer Communities, our comprehensive gun violence reduction strategy. And when appropriate, we will include partners within the criminal justice system, as well as leaders of community-based organizations that work with the city toward this shared goal. We also aim to amplify existing resources and programs that the public can and should be taking full advantage of. The briefings will be open to members of the media and streamed publicly on the City of Philadelphia's Facebook page. We won't be able to turn this around overnight, especially during a time when our city and country is facing other health and economic crises in the wake of COVID. But what we stand to lose is too great not to act with urgency on every possible front. My promise to Philadelphians is that we will do everything within our power to stem the appalling levels of violence we're currently experiencing. Our residents deserve to feel safe in their communities, and we vow to do everything we can to make that a reality. And now I'll turn it over to Commissioner Outlaw to provide an update on the investigations of yesterday's incidents.
Thank you, Mayor Kenney. Good afternoon. The level of gun violence that has plagued our city during the past year has become far too much to bear. The continued violence involving our youth is simply appalling and sickening. A few days ago, a young man by the name of Antonio Walker was at 5200 Pentridge playing basketball with his friends when he was gunned down. Yesterday afternoon, I received a call about a quadruple shooting at 1400 North 76th Street. And in that instance, 2 of the individuals shot would succumb to their injuries. One of the victims in that case was a 17-year-old boy who was out in the parking lot of an apartment complex. He was shot in the chest and transported to Lankino Hospital, where he was pronounced later that evening. But then later in the evening, a triple shooting occurred in the 5500 block of Christian Street at Christie Recreational Center. All 3 victims in this case were juveniles. 2 juveniles were transported to CHOP, and 1 person refused medical attention or treatment. The victims in that shooting were 2 15-year-olds and a 16-year-old. And the 16-year-old was pronounced at 8:16 p.m. I, along with many of you, find it absolutely disturbing that children are doing exactly what they should be doing, playing outside on a warm day in their neighborhood, are increasingly becoming casualties of violent gun battles that are playing out here in our streets. As a city, we all got to do better. We know this. And we cannot sit idly as our children and our young adults and our citizens continue to fall prey to these senseless acts of violence, whether they're victims because they're victims of shootings or they're victims because they have now become shooters. These are our children. In response to this incident that occurred at this very rec center last night, officers will be posted outside of the rec center to monitor any issues. In addition to that, we will be increasing patrols in the areas surrounding the rec center. We'll also be releasing some plainclothes officers to uniform in order to beef up patrols in the areas that have experienced recent shootings. We need our communities to know that there will be far more boots on the ground and our presence will absolutely be visible. We'll also continue to monitor social media in order to get ahead of any of these social media disputes to the best that we can before they spill out onto the streets. In addition to working with the Office of Violence Prevention, who you'll hear from today, we're also working with other law enforcement partners to follow up on previous pedestrian investigations and arrests in these areas. We're working with our community partners to approach this issue far more holistically. I'm asking today the community, all of us, regardless of what it is we represent, what community, what neighborhood, what district, what division, whether you're a barber, you're a stylist, you're an elder, a grandparent, a mother, a play auntie, a cousin, a nephew, an uncle, old head, however you want to be referred to, please, please come together with us, work with us so we can be proactive with our youth and remain vigilant. We know where these guns are. A lot of these young people know what's happening before we do. These social media beefs, these arguments, people on the ground know who's arguing with one another. Please share this information with us. As always, if you have any further information on any of these cases, please call or text our tip line at 215-686-TIPS or dial 911. With that, I'd like to introduce Captain Jason Smith, Commanding Officer of the Homicide Unit, who will provide further details on the current status of the recent homicides. Captain Smith.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you all for being here. We sincerely appreciate your concern. The 3 homicides that I'm going to be covering all occurred in West Philadelphia. West Philadelphia is near and dear to my heart. I've spent over 1/3 of my career assigned to the 18th Police District as well as Southwest Detectives. All right, the first job is occurred at 5213 Pentridge Street. This was this past Tuesday at 6:56 p.m. As the police commissioner mentioned, a young man by the name of Antonio Walker was gunned down on his way home from playing basketball. He was with his 14-year-old cousin. We still do not have a lot of details surrounding this investigation. Our recovered video thus far does not capture the actual shooting incident itself, but we are still in the process of recovering additional video, culling through video that we have recovered, and of course searching for additional witnesses. Before I forget, I would like to put this out there that there is a $20,000 reward for any information leading to the capture and the conviction of any of those persons responsible for any of the 3 homicides that I'm about to cover. Okay? Tips can be called into our real-time crime center at 215-686-TIPS. As I previously mentioned, Mr. Walker was gunned down on his way home from a basketball game. I had the privilege of speaking to Antonio's mother a short while ago. And to say that she sounded like the absolute proud parent of her child would be an understatement. There are a few things that she asked me to convey to you all in honor of his memory. Antonio attended the Free Erie Charter School in Center City, where he was an honor student. Antonio was a big fan of Elon Musk and admired him for the role that he's played in attempting to save our planet. He was a strong proponent for us all reducing our carbon footprint. His mother also told me that Antonio was a vegetarian and strongly opposed to animal cruelty. Antonio sounded like the kind of child any of us would be proud to call our own. The next incident occurred yesterday at approximately 3:04 p.m. This was at 1411 North 76th Street in the 19th Police District. 19th District personnel responded to that location for a report of a shooting. Prior to their arrival, they received information that 4 shooting victims, all suffering from multiple gunshot wounds, were transported to Lankenau Hospital in 2 separate private autos. Our first victim, identified as Naquan Smith, 24 years old, was subsequently pronounced at 3:12 p.m. We had a second shooting victim. This is one of our juveniles, or another one of our juveniles. He was identified as Tamir Brown, 17 years old. He was shot in the chest, and he was subsequently pronounced at 7:48 p.m. There was 2 other shooting victims. I'm not going to mention their names at this point in time, but they're both still listed in critical condition. Our preliminary investigation indicates that all 4 of those victims were sitting inside a 2009 Honda Accord at the time of the shooting. They were possibly shooting a rap video when 2 unknown persons approached their vehicle and opened up fire and began shooting into the car. Besides the decedent's vehicle, there were at least 3 other vehicles with approximately 8 additional people on location. And this is inside the parking lot of the Woodcrest Apartments. However, the decedent's vehicle appears to have been specifically targeted. This seems to be part of an ongoing Instagram war, which has no signs of letting up. I had previously mentioned that in the press conference the other day. Opposing groups shoot at their rivals and then boast about it on social media. And then the problem persists. It goes on and on. Retaliation after retaliation. There are indications. We recovered 24 9mm fired cartridge casings out there, some of which were believed to be those as part of return fire on the offenders. We do have some recovered video, which captured the offenders fleeing from that location. We're hoping to isolate stills of the offenders and get that out to you all as soon as possible. All these individuals, the 2 decedents and the 2 surviving shooting victims, are believed to be part of a group which is known to engage in violent acts. I'm not going to name that group because I don't want to provide any notoriety to them. They don't deserve it. All right, the next incident occurred right here where we're standing, 5500 Christian Street, right in this basketball court. Yesterday at 7:37 p.m., 18th District personnel responded to a report of a shooting. Upon their arrival, they located the victim, identified as Kyrie Simmons, 16 years old. He was lying on a bench behind the rec center, suffering from a gunshot wound to the back of his neck. He was transported to Children's Hospital, Philadelphia, where he was subsequently pronounced at 8:16 p.m. 2 additional victims were located. I'm not going to release their identities. Both were treated for graze wounds and released. Our preliminary investigation indicates all the victims were amongst a group of people playing basketball at the rec center. We have video recovered which shows 4 males exiting a dark-colored SUV and opening fire right from that direction. We received information that there may have been a verbal argument at the basketball court earlier in the evening, and that these individuals returned to commit the shooting. But we're still vetting that information. Again, we had 7 .45 caliber fire cartridge casings that were recovered along the fence line. That was an indication that there was return fire. From the shooters, we recovered 47 9mm fire cartridge casings. So there was a lot of lead dropped out here. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. To us right now, this appears to be a random act of violence. We're speculating, because I had previously mentioned this, that there was laughter heard from the suspect's vehicle as it was passing by after they had committed the shooting. So this could have been an instance where they were going around shooting at people and video recording it. Again, that's just speculation on my point. I have nothing to confirm that. But why else would you laugh? Something like that. Okay. All right.
That's great. Folks, we're going to take some questions at the end. Okay, so we have a lot of speakers up here. So next, if I could introduce Miss Erica Atwood.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erica Atwood. I serve as Senior Director for the Office of Policy and Strategic Initiatives for Criminal Justice and Public Safety within the Managing Director's Office. I want to echo the senselessness of this violence that both the Mayor and the Commissioner expressed. I also want to say this is really personal for me. I live in walking distance of here. My family has been here in between Cobbs Creek and King Sessing for 5 generations. I heard the shots that took Antonio's life. So this is real. This is not only my job, but this is my community. I want to talk to you a little bit about what my team is going to do over the weekend, and so you understand, my office encompasses the Office of Reentry Partnerships, Town Watch Integrated Services, Office of Violence Prevention, and Office of Criminal Justice. Our Community Crisis Intervention Program will be not only canvassing the 18th Police District, which we are standing in now, but also the 12th and the 19th, where we've experienced the shootings this week. The victims and their families of all the shootings will be contacted to ensure their needs are met and to quell any thoughts of retaliation. CCP is concentrating their intel gathering to determine the motivation for the shootings, and we are bringing our staff with the most familiarity and credibility to the affected areas of West and Southwest Philadelphia. Town Watch Integrated Services will be working with community organizations across West and Southwest Philadelphia to focus on engaging not only kind of active neighbors, but also young people. Some of those organizations include Black Men Unifying Black Men, SARE Eyes and Ears, Cobbs Creek Community Town Watch, 18th District Community Town Watch. Along with CCIP, our Community Crisis Intervention Program, Town Watch will be reaching out to community members they have relationships with to see how they've been affected by this week's violence.
We also have our group violence intervention program. They have been active since August and visited over close to 500 homes, mostly in Southwest, to have direct conversations with young people who are at the most risk of being victimized or being perpetrators of gun violence. These are powerful engagements where young people and their families must face the risk and consequences connected to the groups and gangs and ongoing disputes that have led to violence and or death. GVI continues to work closely with West and Southwest areas. The GVI team conducts follow-ups, and we will be doing those follow-ups through the next few weeks here in West and Southwest within these police divisions here. And our social service teams will be continue to connect individuals throughout Southwest to resources and services per their needs and requests. I also want to talk about a critical partnership that we have with the Department of Behavioral Health. We know that we all experience trauma either directly or indirectly from the violence that's happening. They have been in support of us in our efforts since 2019. They are focusing in areas that police have identified as high violence areas and working with our teams with GVI and CCIP to support the communities that have been impacted by this trauma. And they have developed what is a tailored resource and tailored plan to deal with the unique challenges that affect Black and brown communities that are victims and vulnerable to violence. That is kind of what we have for right now, and at the end I'll be happy to answer questions, and some of my team is here as well. And with that, I will hand it over to Parks and Recreation Commissioner Catherine Lovell.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Mayor Kenney, Commissioner Outlaw, Captain Gillespie, Councilmember Gautier, and everyone else who's here working so hard to provide safe outlets for children and families. Philadelphia Parks and Recreation sites, our parks, our playgrounds, our recreation centers, like right here at Christie, should be safe and sacred places for young people. We are working hand in hand with the Philadelphia Police Department to put into place further safety measures to protect children at our rec centers and playgrounds. We know that when teens and young adults are engaged in programs at rec centers and have access to mentors and caring adults, we can play a critical role in combating the senseless violence that occurred here last night. Just last week, Councilmember Gautier brought together myself and Captain Gillespie of this police district to put together a plan for the programs we can offer together for teens here at Christie this spring and summer. Across the city, Parks and Rec is working hard to offer young people as many safe, engaging programs and activities as possible this year. Many of our gyms are now open for permitting, and outdoor sports and programs for teens are returning at our 150 sites across the city. We want to continue to work hand in hand with grassroots community organization in neighborhoods experiencing gun violence. If you are looking for space for your program, please reach out to us, and we will welcome you and your programs into our rec centers. Looking ahead to the summer, Parks and Recreation under the Office of Children and Families will offer thousands of jobs for teens this summer. We will offer summer camps, more than 100 of them, at neighborhood playgrounds and rec centers across the city. We will bring back our Play Streets program that brings healthy food and recreation to young people right where they are, on their streets at 300 blocks across the city. We will continue to offer our extensive summer meals program that will provide over 1 million summer meals to young people through a network of community and city sites. And the Office of Children and Families will work in close partnership with the school district, the free library, and hundreds of local nonprofits to offer more free summer programs in every neighborhood of the city. We will be announcing more details about these programs and other summer programs next month. Finally, I want to thank all of the mentors, the community leaders, and most especially our Parks and Recreation staff, those unsung heroes who dedicate their lives to supporting and protecting our young people. Thank you for all that you do today and always. Thank you. I now want to introduce Congressman Dwight Evans.
I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to be here. I too grew up in this particular area. Matter of fact, around 52nd and Addison, not too far from here. And I share this very same feeling that Ms. Atwater shares about the community, that it is real personal. So I'm happy to be a part of this team because, as the mayor said, it will take a team. It will not be done overnight, and it's very unfortunate. We here collectively need to join together because in Washington, we did pass universal background check and the things we've done. But the most important thing that I think we've done this week is the American Rescue Act. That helps contribute to the councilperson, to the mayor, to the city in terms of resources. And those resources, through the mayor and the council, are very much a part of this mission. Because when the mayor and the district attorney all get together, the fact of the matter, they need resources. And everybody needs that type of help. So it's not going to be done by itself, it's going to be done with us working together. So I want to be very clear that I will be fully a part of this, and it's around the clock. It's all of us working together. I say in closing, as the commissioner stated when she first came here, that this needs to be done by us collectively. It cannot be done just strictly by the police. It must be done by the community. It must be all of us working together to figure out a way to address this problem. And this is not just unique in the city of Philadelphia. These kind of challenges are happening around the entire nation. And I say to you that we all are collectively trying to figure out a way to address these. So again, I thank the mayor for his leadership. I thank the police commissioner and the city council person, as well as the district attorney working together. Thank you very much.
First of all, thank you all for being here. I'm very grateful to hear a lot of positive things in such a terrible moment. I'm very grateful and pleased to hear that the mayor is announcing that there will be bi-weekly press conferences talking about the very complex challenges that we all face. As always, I'm happy to hear it from the commissioner, with whom we work all the time and have always worked on homicide investigations, but at her invitation are able to assist with shooting investigations. Very happy to hear from Erica Atwood some of the innovative, exciting strategies that are being laid out there. From Catherine Ott Lovell, some of the truly good news about what is coming this summer and what we have not had now for a year. The absence of these kinds of programs for youth and for young adults, the absence of having open rec centers, having open swimming pools, having high school classrooms where people had to be, having job programs, being able to get employment in the community, in the free market, from people who, frankly, if they made less than 40 grand, they're probably broke right now while we're finding more billionaires on the billionaire list. The absence of that has been devastating and is very encouraging to hear from Catherine Ott Lovell that better times are coming in terms of that programming, and that the city's doors are wide open to the public, to the grassroots, to bring programs to these spaces that will be protective of everyone in terms of gun violence. I'm also delighted to hear from Congressman Dwight Evans, and I know how hard he worked for federal assistance. That would have been impossible in the last administration, and that is the only way that it's possible for the mayor and for the city to be able to fund these essential, necessary protective programs that have kept us away from some of the risks that we are experiencing now. I also look forward to hearing from Councilmember Gautier, who I think has time and again shown her leadership on this issue and her profound interest in getting to the bottom of it. Let me just say on behalf of the District Attorney's Office that we are not only standing by, we are ready to do anything we can to assist the police department, both with the homicide and shooting investigations. I was actually at one of the crime scenes yesterday. It was the quadruple shooting. Walking over the fired cartridge casings, the blood trails, the items that were being smoked when they went up in the air when the shooting started. It was a horrifying scene, and it was a very, very complex scene. And I saw the police department doing a thorough, careful job to try to get at an investigation that, like nearly all these investigations, will not be easy. And I truly appreciate that effort on the part of the police department. our CARES unit, which provides special services to the families of homicide victims in the first 45 days, a unit initiated during this administration, was dispatched to address these shootings, the triple and the quadruple, to offer services to the families of homicide victims. And our Victim Witness Services unit, which previously only worked on cases where there had been an arrest, is now expanded to provide services even where the case is not solved. We are trying to do our part in any way that we can. No, it's not enough to say that we have almost an 85% conviction rate on gun violence trials, as demonstrated in the first quarter of 2020, because that's not the solution. The solution is not to have 45 fired cartridge casings here and 7 over there, and blood on the ground and a young man dead. That's not the solution. The solution is prevention. And I am very, very encouraged to hear everyone here, frankly, that it looks like people in the city are on the same page, that there will be unity. Let me just finally say that my office's Monday press conferences for several weeks now have begun by a discussion of the week's gun violence. That will continue. The police commissioner and the mayor both know that whenever they are able, and I know they're very busy, they are welcome to come to those conferences. That invitation will continue. At this point, I look forward to hearing from Councilmember Gautier.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councilmember Jamie Gautier, and I represent Philadelphia's 3rd Councilmanic District. I want to first start out by saying how glad I am that Mayor Kenney and his administration are launching regular public briefings on gun violence next week. These will be key opportunities for Philadelphians to learn what the city is doing to address this crisis. These briefings were one of the major asks that I put forward last year in Resolution 200447, which encouraged the mayor's office to launch an emergency response to this urgent public health issue. I want to thank Mayor Kenney for making these briefings a priority, and I want to express my gratitude to all of my fellow council members and community members who have been calling for change. In the long run, the enhanced transparency provided by public briefings could contribute to a reduction in gun violence by encouraging more accountability, by raising this crisis to a higher level of importance in our government, and by changing the media narrative around shootings. To be truly effective, the briefings must be a part of our larger, more comprehensive strategy that includes major investments in prevention, intervention, and victim services programs, and that connects to enforcement strategies as well. I wish that we were gathering here in West Philly today under better circumstances. Last night, not far from where we stand right now, a 15-year-old boy was shot and killed while playing basketball, and 2 of his friends were also injured. This was one of 2 mass shootings in West Philadelphia just last night. The other was in Overbrook, as you've heard, in Councilmember Jones's district. The child who died here last night was a resident of my district. He was the 4th child in the district to lose his life to gun violence in less than a 2-week span, if you count another young man who died from his injuries from a shooting last fall. This dramatic spike in gun violence, which experts attribute to the pandemic, has taken a serious toll in cities across the country. And I think it's never been more important that Philadelphians are able to see that we are coming to the table and doing everything we possibly can to address this crisis each and every day. Because ultimately, gun violence is a public health emergency, a public safety priority, and a racial justice issue, all wrapped into one. And while we most definitely need to address the long-term root causes of this violence, our communities cannot wait. We need immediate action to stop the bloodshed and to bring much needed relief to our neighborhoods. So with that, I'll say I look forward to working hand in hand with Mayor Kenney, Commissioner Outlaw, Commissioner Lovell, District Attorney Krasner, Erica Atwood, and all of my fellow Philadelphians to make this a reality. Thank you so much.
Questions, please. I'm sorry. Oh, the Queen? Yeah. I don't have an answer to that. I'm not a young person. I'm not experiencing the things that they're experiencing these days. And I think the real problem, in addition to the things we've talked about here, is that our officers have bravely taken about 1,000 guns off the street this year, from January 1st till today. They are simultaneously replaced almost 2 to 1 by going out to the suburb, going out to a county, not too far from Philadelphia, and buying a bag of guns with nobody asking you who you are or what your background is. We just had a press conference with the district attorney and the attorney general last week, talking about the 90 ghost guns that have been retrieved from the city of Philadelphia that are untraceable and can't even magnetize them. You can't even tell somebody's carried them when you go through a magnetometer. Some of the older folks that we have with our GVI, who have had lived experiences, people who have been away themselves, come back and tell us that this generation is a scary generation for them, that they don't listen to them and they don't always show respect. So it's not that we're giving up on them. That's why we invested so much money in education, in the things we're trying to do with college training and with job training. It's just getting them in the door, and it's also the drug trade, which is, we could use a lot of help from the federal government on that too, on both gun trade and drug trade. And as a matter of fact, I think the other day the FBI and ATF and our folks and the DA's folks, have made, I think, can I mention the arrest or no? No? I'll wait. But they're working on big things to give us some breathing room so our officers can actually fight crime on the street. I don't know the initial answer to the question you asked. I don't know, but we're going to try to find out and fix it. Yeah. Yeah. That's certainly not on the table. It's not being seriously considered at the moment, because what curfews do is it penalizes good people who are just going about their business, kids who are going to school, going to work, people who are going shopping. I mean, I hopefully we won't get there, but it's not on the table right now.
There were two shooters. Well, technically, we believe that there were going to be 3, actually, and in that one of the parties returned fire. That's a possibility, yes. But there were definitely two individuals that approached and initiated the shooting. I'm sorry. Both. Yeah, we believe there were 2 shooters that approached the vehicle, the 2009 Honda, that the decedents were located inside. But then there was another individual who we have yet to identify. Well, we have yet to identify either of the shooters. But there was one other party that returned fire. 3 shooters total.
We'll make sure you get all that stuff, man.
Okay.
Captain, can you update us on the death of the 2-year-old girl, Tony? Can you tell us about that investigation?
Okay. Yeah, it's a very disturbing case of child abuse. Child sustained horrific injuries. She was transported to St. Christopher's Hospital, and she was pronounced. So we have 2 persons currently at the homicide unit at this point in time. We have the biological mother of the child, and then we have the godmother of the child. Information received was that the godmother has had custody of the child since November of last year. Okay, the mother maintains that she's made regular contact via Zoom calls, things of that nature, and stayed in constant contact with the godmother and her child. Okay, so we're still investigating this. Okay, so and also we need a determination to be made by the medical examiner's office. At this point in time, there hasn't been one made. Okay, so as far as who's going to be charged and with what, It's too early to say.
Was the child staying with the godmother because of circumstances at the house when the power was turned off? Were you able to confirm that?
My understanding, what's being told to me is that right, the reason why the mother had the godmother watching the child was that the heat had been turned off. There was no heat in the house. So the mother was concerned for the child's well-being. That's why she allowed her to stay there.
Can you name the child? Can you name the child at this point?
I would prefer not at this point in time.
So you're calling both related two persons of interest, trying to sort out who may have caused the abuse, would that be fair?
That's correct. That's correct.
I guess I would say I like facts, and you know we're in a terrible moment here in Philadelphia, but the facts are these. So is basically every big city in the country, and I'm not the DA in every big city in the country. If we look at 34 different cities that have been reviewed with reference to gun violence, what we see, counting the one with the worst record of increase as number one, is that Philadelphia ranks as number 23. And the amount of violence we've experienced here from guns, which is terrible, is actually about average for these different cities. So there are people who are going to want to politicize almost anything, and unfortunately when it comes to criminal justice, a lot of the narrative and sometimes the journalism is completely unscientific. But if we actually look at what's going on, it becomes pretty clear that we are experiencing a once-in-a-lifetime event involving the pandemic that has affected one city after another. Some of those cities are looking at 80, 90, 100% increases in violence. We're looking at a horrifying increase of about 37% over last year at this time. There's other cities feeling good because they're only at 25% increases. An increase that at any other time would be considered terrible. I think we should be coming together, working together, and that is why I'm here, and that's why I'm glad to see my law enforcement colleagues and legislative colleagues here.
I have a follow-up question to that. Yesterday, we know on Broad Street there was the gentleman who was up here getting moving on. It kind of seems like the general consensus is kind of that there won't be any consequences for any action. Do you have a message to people who want to put guns in the middle of the street or?
Of course I have a message. I don't really accept your premise about the general sense. I think everybody understands that at a time when the police have no choice but to do policing in a different way than the pandemic, and at a time when the courts are effectively closed, which they are, and at a time when probation and parole are not able to function as normal. In fact, they're not seeing people either in their offices or in their homes. I think everybody understands that we all are operating in a very, very different system. And that, you know, just as the police are doing the best they can, the judges, who really can't even run court for the most part, are doing the best they can. Probation and parole are doing their best. That we're doing the best we can as well. Is there any other question for me?
Do you see anything moving forward since you've come into office and wanted to make the changes that you're in on your platform? Do you see anything along the way that you thought would work that now you need to tinker with?
We evaluate what we are doing every day, as I'm sure the mayor does, as I'm sure the police commissioner does, as I'm sure probation and parole, the judiciary, our elected officials evaluate what we're doing every day to see if there's something we can do better. And make no mistake, we do some things right every day, and we do some things wrong every day, just like the media.
Hold it. Deputy Commissioner Nash has an update on that issue on Broad and Wash.
Well, I can tell everybody that the video that a lot of people had the opportunity to see of a horrendous attack of an operator of a car at the 1100 block of Broad Street, who was in the company of a family member, and cinder blocks being thrown at him, and a gun was pulled. We were able to identify that individual. This incident occurred on Tuesday. We were able to identify him positively yesterday. He'd been in custody as of Wednesday for an unrelated incident involving a shooting that had occurred back on February 22nd. So he's in custody, and I think the message that's going to go out is he's going to be in for a very long time. Is that going to stop all the other HEV operators from doing what they're doing? This is an ongoing problem that we're experiencing. But when we have something that we can identify, we'll jump right on it. In this case, we were able to bring him to justice right away. Mhm.
Let me, I've seen this activity, and it is frustrating, and it does anger you. Taking 50 to 100 moving vehicles, having an officer or officers in a car is a very tricky and dangerous situation for everybody involved. And we're working on some strategies that we're not ready to release yet to try to deal with confiscation and other things that will keep less and less of these more and more off the street. But for our officers in vehicles or on foot to try to corral 50 or 75 moving vehicles at a high rate of speed is really a dangerous situation. I understand the view of it. It angers people. It makes them angry. They feel like there's no control. But we're figuring out ways in which we can address it without putting our officers in harm's way or even the riders in harm's way. No, I understand. I understand. There's a lot of stress out. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of fear. We've been living with this heightened sense of stress and fear and anger for a whole year now on lots of different levels. So we're working on that particular problem, and we're working on this particular problem, and we're working on vaccines, and we're working on testing, and we're trying to get the economy back because we're just getting this money, we have to figure out how to spend it. So there's multiple layers of things that we're working on simultaneously. No excuse, but our plate's kind of full.
So I can start with the second question. Psychologically, does the introduction of social media help? Let me know if I'm rephrasing this properly. If it makes things worse. I think for us, and I've shared this before, for law enforcement, it has caused us, all of us, not just here in Philadelphia, to hit the reset button and rethink how we address it, whether it's open source data or not. Social media now allows individuals to not just post something that they aspire to do, but it can also be intentional at the same time. And we in law enforcement often find ourselves behind the 8 ball because I could post something literally right now and say I'm going to do something and actually do it at the same time, as opposed to someone having a conversation and saying, you know what, I might go out and do whatever, and I might tell somebody, and then we have the luxury of going and knocking on someone's door once we find out who they are, where they live, and saying, are you really going to do this, right? This stuff is happening in real time. And because of that, we're finding ourselves sometimes chasing our tails, but oftentimes not. In some cases that we announced recently, our social media analysis done by our intelligence analysts, our ability of our detectives to utilize social media has been very beneficial in helping us either get some very strong leads and direction on cases that either we can't share publicly yet, or actually make some pretty solid arrests. So it's a blessing and a curse, but also at the same time, I think we're seeing a lot of this. Life has turned into one big reality TV show. You don't have to be a celebrity or with a following or with cameras in order to advertise your life or, document every moment of what we're saying and what we're doing. And the problem with we're seeing, around that is that a lot of this is being taken as real-time threat, right? Or insults or whatever it is. And so people are coming in real time and they're responding to this. So it certainly adds to our level of frustration, but it's also shown us that we have to step our game up, whether it's through our use of technology, our social media analysis, and then also in our communities, our folks within these households know what your people in your house are posting, know what accounts they have, get their passwords if you can. You know, come up with fake accounts. I mean, I'm a parent, and if you don't hear it today, I'm a mother first. These are our children. So I came up in a day where I was afraid, quite frankly, to even say a curse word. Not saying I cuss today. I do. But I was afraid to say a curse word on the corner because I knew that the lady on the corner was going to go back and tell my grandmother that I did something I wasn't supposed to do. We need that village again. And so it's not just through social media. It's really the bigger picture. What we're talking about is our ability in real time to network and connect with others. But I think we can use that in a positive way. I can't tell you whether or not we got real UC officers, but I will tell you again that our analysts do work very closely. Now again, we can't be the social media police because there's so many people out there that use social media, but we are trying to find some creative ways through the use of our investigators, our analysts, through our detectives to make sure that it is in part, a very important part of our investigation. Last question. Absolutely. Yes, they can remain anonymous. You can either call 911 for things that appear to be emergent, and then we also have our tip line, which is 215-686-TIPS. We put that tip line out every opportunity that we can because I don't want anyone to think that any bit of information that they have is too small or too little. So whether it's around a social media beef or people we should be paying attention to, if you know where guns are being hidden in their homes, there was a woman who flagged me down yesterday, and she told me, I'm afraid of what's happening here in our streets. I'm afraid for my children, but I'm afraid of my children also. That's a reality also. Some people are afraid of the folks that are living in their homes, and if they need an anonymous way to get information to us, that tip line and or 911 is the best way to do it. Thanks.